explain to us a little bit about high reliability.
Sure. So high reliability means that you achieve the goals that you set out, you achieve your mission, and you do it safely. Okay. You're consistently performing, even though, whoa, you're on a Navy ship in a rough sea, you're flying millions of flights. Somehow you consistently are safe and you consistently reach that goal. So these lessons took a long time to learn in nuclear power, in the Navy, in even in our airlines. It took a while for people to realize, okay, when things are this complex and this uncertain, one of our biggest tools is our minds. Okay, and so if you'll see behind me, I call it the wonderful wild world we work in, and that is about just this volatile world and all these wonderful, fabulous, but fallible and free-willed people. And then those great folks go and build crazy complex systems filled with technology and filled with people. And if you can picture that circle there, everything's almost like spinning like a roulette. And we just cannot imagine the possibilities. So if you see HRO behind me, and if you could take away one word about high reliability organizing, it's about your relationships with what is possible. And
awesome
is, yeah, it doesn't have to be so hard. It's fun. And once you learn the mindset and how to interact with your colleagues, you're gonna be more successful and have a way better time at work.
Let me be honest, Lauren. What you just described is the key problem in sterile processing and surgery. We don't repeat our processes. We are kind of untrained in anticipating things that can stop us from being high reliability organizations. And a lot of times the perception from our customers, the physicians or the OR staff, a low reliability organization. So your training is needed. The background for sterile processing leadership is all over the place. There's no standard degree that addresses what we have. So we often don't have that high reliability training. So that's why we're excited to hear from
you. Oh, well, thank you. Yes. And I do agree. And I see that in healthcare now. So I'm a nurse. Everybody, I've been there at every level from the ED to supervising. And I was really interested in this question is how can it be? And I know this is your work. You have good intentions and then you have good plans. And then you have dedicated people, but somehow still we end up with these failures that no one intended. So what either is missing that we need to add, or what do we need to is present that we need to take away? And the more I studied the failures, I said, okay, wait a minute. We've been so focused on our processes, which we need, but involved in all these processes are people. And we're so system focused, we forgot about the power of people. Matter of fact, one of my little missions that I'm on is to write a new chapter in healthcare. So we spent 20 years with the message to err is human. Now that is true, but it's half the truth, because the other half is to create safety is human. And we're creating safety all day long, despite imperfect systems and imperfect information. And we have to focus on what people can do and are doing. And what makes me crazy is the biggest untapped resource for, success, every type of success, from, how a patient feels to how the staff feels is in the minds of the people who work in that organization. And once people realize how powerful they are as individuals, and then leaders realize, wait a minute, maybe I need to evolve in my leadership. And then the final territory is really the social aspect of safety. When we look at how we relate to each other and how that affects risk, then we can get to a new level. And they had to do that in the airlines. They had to look at how do we relate to each other. And also when we're saying, Jermaine, about, well, we don't have a standard training. One of the things that I'm really pushing for now, with having spent some time with the nuclear folks, is they have an overarching agreement. And I could send it to you, and you could send it out to your followers. I believe that the Nuclear Powers International Atomic Energy Association, their standard for how to create safety in complex high-risk work should be adopted by healthcare, and it supersedes any leader's vision. It is the best we've got. to deliver those good intentions, that we're hoping for.
People in healthcare hate checklists. I was in the Navy, and so I'm used to checklists. We know pilots use checklists. We know nuclear physicists use checklists. We know a lot of people doing complex things do checklists. And when we kept doing surgery on the wrong side of patients, and they tried to bring checklists into the OR, man, we had huge pushback.
Well, I think we have to, one of the things we can do, and I believe in healthcare, part of the problem is everyone's so busy that no one has time to just sit back and say, okay, what is the problem with checklists here? And let's talk about it, because if something isn't resonating, it may be that it's in the wrong place. It may be the wrong people created it, so I think it's really about getting down to the people that are using that checklist to say, okay, what isn't working about you and what would work to make sure that we're not missing something? Because no one wants to go home at the end of the day and say, oh my goodness, at 2 a.m., I forgot that. So how can we support you, as the local expert in this process, to make sure the work does get done?
Lauren, we have a standard of care in sterile processing, and in the operating room, we have AORN Association recommendations. We also have AMI recommendations. And that is our standard of care, pretty much, of how we should move on a technical level, process level, instrument flow. So it gives us a lot of recommendations, but essentially standards of care. And what we see is the staff, right? Human error. Some of them have the education level to that standard, and some of them, a lot of people that we see, and I think this is human too, is that we teach someone, we learn one thing, and we just continue that practice all the way through. We never increase our knowledge, or as the industry changes, increase to the increased standard of care. And so we see a lot of, we have a standard, but we're not necessarily following the standard. And some of us don't know the standard. And so to get to that level of excellence, it really is a lot about education and disclosure of information. But one of the things you said was high reliability really exposes the management style, your own management style, your own work ethic, your own level of expertise from technician to director in a hospital. And so that exposure, it's looked at like exposure when it really, I think, should be enlightened, right? It's like you've been enlightened, you now have more information, and so now you're going to get to the next level for your education or more information. And it's kind of a motivator, I think, not to be exposed that, you're corrected or something like that. That's our hospital way sometimes, is that, look what you did. It really is about exposure in prompting more education, a higher level of excellence for yourself, because what we learn in one hospital, we learn in our work ethic for everywhere we go. I mean, it's not just that one place. It really is about us essentially serving our team and all the customers.
Well, absolutely. And I think I like to make things as simple as possible. And I think what I'm hearing you say is we have to learn to learn. And we have to love learning. And we have to understand that a phrase I would say is feedback is your friend. Now, it can take years to get to that point where you're like, oh my goodness, they just told me it would be better if I did something else. Now, if you're on the golf course and you have a golf coach or you have a tennis coach, you're paying good money to improve your game. But suddenly at work, we don't, to the thought that you're not working perfectly is so painful. And we're not okay. So the irony of this is that I am very, very, very fallible. I'm not mindful. So my husband says that my memoir is going to be my life as an oxymoron. Isn't he funny? Because I mess so many things up. So, and a part of it is, they say you teach what you need to learn, but there's parts of high reliability that work with me, but boy, there's parts that, I'm coming in as a co-learner. Trust me. And I'm excited because I've seen what it can do for me, and I see the vision, what it can do. And the number one thing that everyone has to do, when you see this iceberg over here, and you realize that there's a lot of unknowns, we're not only coming in as fallible people, okay, and we're all fallible, okay. If you're the executive, well, maybe you're getting a paper cut. It doesn't seem so, but we're all making mistakes all day long at work, every single person. And when you can say, not only am I fallible, I'm working with all kinds of things I don't know. And that's part of what I do to help you. How do we bring it from the unknown to the known? What are those strategies for that? But the freedom that comes when you can say, I might make a mistake today, and would you help me see if I'm headed in that direction? The calmness and the peace. The need for perfection, you can't have it in a human system. So we can tweak the processes and we can improve ourselves. We'll never be perfect, but we can improve our game.
So one of the things you were talking about earlier, you and Jamid, was sustainability, right? Quality, checklist, and different things. And Jamid and I just finished speaking at a viral conference about quality and sustainability for the operating room. And so this high reliability, once you tweak out and identify in our process, right, what we do at Advantage, we'll go through and audit a system or audit a facility process. And in that audit, we find all the positives, pros and cons, right? All the fors and against. And we'll identify those against as it relates to quality. We think that's the number one key to process flow and a product like a manufacturer would, right? Sterile processing is a lot like a manufacturer, and that they have quality checks. And so if they implement those, when we identify them, then you're implementing those quality checks. And then we say there's a learning curve. Is that how high reliability works?
Yes, there's, I think the high reliability piece of that would say, okay, let's talk about what's holding us back from meeting those standards and really getting to that deeper level of what's happening within the system, between people. The one thing I know is everyone does want to be successful. So when we're not successful, it's about like, can we be open to what it actually is? And it could be, you really have to be a detective because it can be something that you never imagined. That's holding you back, and really come at it from like the group learning instead of that shame. I mean, that's the problem. We just have to think of we can do better instead of we're failing, and everyone's failing a little bit everywhere every day. So I think just freeing that up will make people, it's so much about how we feel at work, how we feel about our relationships, how they're going to feel about you coming in. You're not you're not the bad guys. You're coming to help them. Okay. You're coming to support, and safety really should be helping profession instead of feeling like this,
That's right.
rules. It should be, how can we help you be successful today?
And I feel strongly that one of the things that as an industry have to do is bake in people that can do this. We rarely see quality techs where we go, but even the quality tech is QAing the final product, whereas the way to the truck is built to QA it at multiple steps. And we can't blame our teams because we just don't have enough people to do that. And I know revenue generating department, but we have to figure out a way to bake in some of those high reliability champions so that we can catch mistakes. Like you said, we can investigate and not wait until the end or wait until the patient is about to use our work product before we find out some of the defects that might be in that product.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So the joy of the high reliability is how about this? Instead of looking backwards, let's try to prevent it. And so I came up with, and we can share this with the group, 7 questions for a high reliability mindset. And the first one, in terms of any success, is what is the intention? And gathering the people, like, what are we actually, the intention is not, meeting a standard is the secondary intention. We're going to do this for a patient. That standard is supposed to be a support for us, not a negative. So what's our intention here with this sterilization? And then the second question is very reverse. What has to go right for these things, for these instruments to come out ready and safe and good for a patient? And let's start thinking about what needs to be present.
I like that approach. I really like that approach, that the standards are support for the goal, right?
Yes.
And we'll go in, and a lot of times in the old days when I used to teach in-house in the facilities, was my goal as a new educator was the standard, right? It was like, get this standard. And what I learned over time with my being exposed and getting more information and education was a different perspective and approach. That it's not a disciplinarian act. It really is a supportive tool to give to them. You know, one of the things we talked about was we have, you know, Jamid mentioned before, we have quality tools in a sterile processing area, but sometimes we can't get the tools we need or know the tools that we need, right? And then it's actually compliance, right? To consistently learn. It's like a habit. Practice it for 30 days and you'll never even give it a second thought to clean a cannula or inspect a lumen or something like that. It would just be every single time you did a tray. And so, you know, getting the tools to the right tools to the end users and the practitioners is very important. And so in high reliability, how do you suggest we implement that or gather the data to get the tools and have a better approach to even getting the supplies we need to begin a high reliability or quality system?
Right. I do think it's the power of the question. Stepping back, there's 2 things. One, are you asking the right questions? And do you have the right people there? And one of the things about high reliability is there's a phrase called deference to expertise. And what we're really saying is make sure that the people are doing the job have a voice. And that I want to just share about that a little bit is that the knowledge, the place that you can tap into is the collective intelligence of the group. And when you really get people feeling free to share, and that freedom will come from trusting their leader. So that's where the leaders have to work on making sure it's when you share and you speak that's going to be received and appreciated. Okay. But once you unlock that organizational learning, you could get at the answers of why isn't this equipment here, or what are we missing to make sure this happens? Because I mean, I would say, okay, the patient tomorrow is you. Now, what do you want to see happen here? So this is all ready for you tomorrow. And what do you need? I think the right questions after what must go right, then start thinking what might go wrong and talk about what might go wrong in our communication, what might go wrong in our system, or what are the human capabilities? What training do you need? So I like to think of it in 3 buckets. Think about your system, think about your human capabilities, and then think about that communication that sometimes is with the system. It's not just people to people. People have to communicate with their system. And what in those 3 buckets, what has to go right to achieve our mission? And then start thinking, okay, now what might go wrong? Let's think ahead of time. And when you engage a lot of people, people will know of other failures. Like, oh, have you ever had that happen? Oh my goodness, no, but that's bad.
Yeah, networking is really important to help each other solve issues as well, even one system to another. Instead of, hiding your issues over in the corner, like share them, spread it, get a megaphone, and let's talk about it. And what are some ways high reliability affects job satisfaction?
Sure. Well, I've been thinking, actually, I was speaking with someone yesterday in the Netherlands, and we were thinking about that whole, picture this, as we work, we have our workspace that's our systems and processes, instruments, it's in the workspace. Then we have what's in our headspace, what's going on in my head as I work, okay? And then there's the group space, what's going on in the social group. And if you ask people about their job, I bet most of the time, like, well, my boss, and you're going to hear something positive or something negative, or my coworkers. Safety and success are never not social. There's a double negative, but there's always a social component. And I think we've just started to realize how powerful that is. So I started thinking yesterday, think about it as a nurse, and I'm sure this is happening in the OR. You didn't speak up. You knew you didn't feel safe. And it's very unfortunate that you have to risk your personal safety to speak up about a concern. And now you go home. Now, who are you as that mom that night when you've been frustrated or feeling guilty about work? So I'm starting to realize how much that culture at work, I mean, it's not just flowing to the patients and the coworkers and the doctors, it's flowing out to our families, how we feel about our work every day.
Wow.
So when you know that you've been 100% authentic, you felt invited by your leader to share the concern. And when you know you've done everything you can, then you go home a different person. And I always said, this is my thing from a nursing mind. So a lot of nurses will go around, they're mad at their nurse leader, they're mad at their manager. And every minute that I'm thinking about why I'm mad about my work environment, I'm not thinking about my patient. And we need to make sure that people's attention can be on the job. And this is, the power of leadership to make it better for everyone. And leaders, I think, it's a tricky job. What can I maneuver? They've got lots of financial pressure. They've got time pressure. But what if we focus on how we talk to each other and how we relate? And then what's going to happen with our work? Suddenly, the instrument piece might seem a little easier.
We need to reach out to some experts to see if they can come in and not get us fired or not get us in trouble, but just talk to us about how we change our high reliability thinking. And I want the viewers, I want the directors and managers to be open to engaging with experts in this area. So if you help us with the 7 questions, that can help get the discussion started. But I really want to promote people to start looking differently at the vendors that they're using, because you're using other vendors for different things that are really not having any impact on your quality improvement. And this is something that you can really get the return on your investment to bring in high reliability organization experts, bring in companies like Advantage that have that high reliability organization creation baked in. And then when we leave, then you have you leave high reliability organization experts behind. So it's difficult to kind of do on your
That's
own.
right.
But I think that it's not impossible. But I think that starting off with those 7 questions, but also putting your information out so that we can contact you, so we can see how we can match our goals, kind of shared goal of creating a high reliability organization.
Yep. And the beauty is these questions work anywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're the tech, the surgeon, you're in the cafeteria, or you're in the boardroom. One of the things I want to make clear, because I definitely are hearing that there's this, we're making mistakes and we're getting exposed and we're doing things wrong. When you really look at the complexity of the wonderful wild world we work in, you realize that these challenges are normal. We are the unknowns, the uns, as I call them, that live in that bottom of that, they are normal. We're not fighting. We don't need to fight each other. What we just need to do is support each other to grow in how we manage what we don't know, how we learn from each other.
That's right.
And so
I agree.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And it really is. What we said earlier, Lauren, was we dubbed a term for consulting. We dubbed the term advocate, because when we go in, we really are trying to initiate training to develop an SME or a high reliability person, liaison for the organization. And so we really are an advocate. When we go into audits, We always tell them, we are not here to take your job. We live where we live and we like our towns. We don't want to come to your city. But what we are here to do is be an advocate and a voice to the administration for you. So as we walk through, we really are trying to get their story. So at the end of the week, we tell their story that they might not have a voice to. And earlier you said something about having a voice and speaking up, that if you have an issue, not to be silent and to, tell your story. It's just so important, because if you're feeling like that, you're not the only one, is what we found out, right? If I'm thinking it, so are other people, and we're all in the same boat, but nobody's speaking up and saying it.
Well, and that's going to be the leader's job to unlock that. And so I have a work model practice going out called Speaking In, and we're going to flip things on the head. The people that already have less power are not necessarily going to be, it's not safe for them to always speak up, but the leader can make it safe, and the leader can experience all kinds of new success. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you a little story about nuclear power, and I think it should really encourage healthcare. It wasn't that long ago that nuclear power it wasn't that they were failing, but 67% of the time there were things going on that caused the reactors to shut down. So they were not producing power nearly. So it was sort of a failure, but so they were not living to their potential, and they had to change the way they worked. And one of the things that they changed is they said, everybody's got to feel free to speak. And actually in NASA, they're part of their evaluation as a leader is how good are you at asking those questions that bring information out of people? Because listen, yes, you're struggling in the sterilization, but so is NASA. So was nuclear power. They made this is a normal part of how much complexity we've added, how much technology, and just sort of how fragmented and volatile our modern world is.